All right, welcome everybody to the special 6 p.m. special city council meeting. Let the record reflect that all council members are present with the exception of Vice Chair White and Councilmember Myers, who have asked to be excused. We may be joined online potentially, but if not, they'll be excused. I've asked Councilmember Heyer to lead us in the pledge. So,
please stand if able and recite the pledge with me, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this time, we'll go ahead and observe a moment of silence. Thank you. Do we have any acknowledgements from the council?
I'd be happy to make some acknowledgements. I had a wonderful time this weekend attending some Earth Day events in the community. First at the Nature Center and then also with the Grow Ogden organization. And it was just, what a beautiful day. And there was so many people. When I left the Nature Center, I think around 3 o'clock, there was already 1,500 people had been there. So it was a wonderful event.
And I'll acknowledge that 4 of us, Chair Ritchie and Councilmember Heyer and myself and a member of our staff, Glenn Symes, had the opportunity to attend the National Planning Conference in Minneapolis, Minnesota last week. And there was a lot of discussion around rezoning and new general plans and density and transportation and housing was forefront as well, and Ogden is on the right track. We're thinking ahead and looking to the future, and it was great to get some insight and some reinforcement around the things that we're looking to. We enjoyed each other's company. We had dinner together, and Ken and I even got up early and ran a 5K race on Sunday morning, which was a great way to see Minneapolis and downtown on foot. So I was grateful to have the opportunity to go.
Thank you. Okay. All right, I appreciate that. Up next, we have approval of minutes. First off, we have the special meeting of March 12th, 2024. Councilmember Blair.
Yes, thank you, Chair Ritchie. I have reviewed those minutes and found them to be accurate.
Thank you. And then we have the work session and regular meeting of March 19th, 2024, closed session of March 26th, 2024, and closed session of April 2nd, 2024. Councilmember Chaburka.
Thank you, Chair. One thing I just want to note, I really appreciate the recorders getting these meetings the minutes to us a little bit earlier, because I actually remember everything that happened in the meeting, so that's wonderful. And then also just a note to amend the closed session of March 26, 2024 to add Jared Johnson's name to those minutes. They were not indicated there, so I spoke with Leanne about that, and we can just add it through an amendment. Otherwise, they're correct to my recollection.
Okay, thank you. And then we have the joint work session and special meeting of March 26th, 2024. Councilmember Heyer.
Yes, Chair, I have reviewed those and found them to be accurate to the best of my recollection, and I would make a motion that we approve the minutes as listed in the agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes with the amendment from Councilmember Chaburka and a second by Councilmember Blair. And this is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Sounds like we have Vice Chair White online with us. Hello, Vice Chair White. Okay.
Hi.
Okay, thank you. Up next, we'll invite Justin Sorensen, or not Justin, Coralie, sorry. Yeah, Coralie is here to address us on the proposed fiscal year 2023-2024 budget amendment mid-year adjustments. Sorry about that, Coralie.
Oh,
My
it's
bad.
okay. So, all right. So for the budget appropriation for fiscal year 24 for the city budget in the general fund, we are proposing to increase the revenue by $115,000, and this is for $130,000. This is to recognize revenue that we received for a school resource officer for Ogden Preparatory Academy. This will cover wages as well as the vehicle and equipment for this officer for the school year. $15,000 of that will be coming from city funds, and that is to cover the portion of the school year or of the fiscal year that is not during the school year. In the non-departmental, there is we're recognizing the payment of, or the use of B&C road funds to be used for the ESCO bond, principal and interest. This will be the last year that B&C road funds will be used, and in the future it will be coming, the savings will be coming from facilities. And then the final appropriation in the general fund is a use of retained earnings, and it's restricted restricted retained earnings that is from B&C road funds, and this is to be used for the 20th Street to Quincy Valley Drive. It's a match for a grant that was received on that project. So the total increase in the appropriation for the general fund is $265,400. In the CIP fund, in the CIP fund, we are recognizing interest earned on the 2020 ESCO bonds that was not appropriated previously, and that those funds will be used in the facilities project and the downtown Ogden Stadium. We're also cleaning up quite a few of the CIP projects. We had project managers go through those projects, and we're closing out some of the CIP projects and transferring those funds. We're proposing to transfer those funds to other projects. We have a municipal facilities projects, and it's being proposed that $625 be reappropriated to the general facilities improvement project, our amphitheater CIP project, and the Ogden Avenue Plaza project. Both are complete, and we are proposing that we transfer approximately $11,000 over to the 9 Rails public realm improvements. And then also we're proposing to close out the former D School site development and reappropriating those funds over to the 6 North Jackson infill site infrastructure project. Another project that is complete and we're proposing to reappropriate the funds is the Lynn Field, and it's proposed that those funds be reappropriated to the recreation improvement project, as well as funds in the Marshall White improvement CIP project over to the Marshall White construction project. And then some other proposed changes in the CIP fund. When the 20th Street Improvements WACOG grant was originally appropriated, there was an error in that, and so we are proposing reducing that appropriation by $605,000. But we are also recognizing the match that is coming over, that is being proposed to be transferred in from the general fund. And then we are proposing to increase the revenue for the Centennial Trails revenue, as well as the CIP project related to Centennial Trails, to appropriate $145,000 for payments that were received in the past. And finally, we are proposing an appropriation of $1 million of interest income that will be earned from the bond interest that has been received on the Marshall White Center bond. Just a note, council had a question on what those funds would be used for. And it's being proposed that we would use those funds for fencing, lighting, any contract modifications during construction, and then landscaping and possibly EV stations. And then the furnitures and fixtures for Marshall White have not gone under contract yet, but those funds could be used for that as well. So the total proposed increase in the appropriation of the CIP fund is $870,676. In the water fund, we are proposing recognizing interest income, and this is interest that was earned on the 2020 water bond proceeds of $729,850. And then we are also cleaning up the Wheeler Creek Intake CIP project. That project's complete, and we're proposing that those leftover funds be reappropriated to the Water Master Plan project for a total increase in the appropriation in the water fund of $729,850. Sorry, just a few more, I promise. It's a lot. Okay, sorry. And I'm not keeping up on the slides either. Okay. In the sanitary sewer fund, we are proposing an appropriation for interest income of $547,387. And this is for interest that has been earned on the 2020 water sewer bonds that was not previously appropriated. And then we are also doing a cleanup on on a sanitary project for the sanitary manhole repairs. The project's complete, and we're proposing that the funds be reappropriated to the sanitary sewer master plan CIP and the total proposed increase in the appropriation is $547,387. In refuse, we are proposing a use of retained earnings for the purchase of a new refuse truck, as we had one catch fire recently, so we need to replace it. We did get some insurance proceeds, so that'll be reduced by we'll reduce the purchase amount by that, and then the remainder will go into fund balance at the end of the year. The total appropriation proposed for refuse is an increase of $453,400. In storm, we are proposing an increase in the state grants for a grant that we received from UDOT for $45,000, and then also an increase in interest income to recognize interest earned on the 2020 water sewer bonds of $328,432. And those funds will be used in the storm sewer master plan. And then also we're doing the CIP cleanup for storm sewer street CIP and storm sewer detention basin CIP. Those projects are complete, and we're proposing those funds be reappropriated into the storm sewer master plan. And the total increase in the appropriation for the storm utility fund is $373,432. And then in our medical services, we are proposing an increase of $111,200 to recognize this revenue that we received on a sale of stretchers. In our fleet and facilities plan, or fleet and facilities fund, we're recognizing an increase. We're proposing an increase in the appropriation of $280,625, and this is to recognize income received from sale of assets. And then that, on the expense side, it is divided out by each department to replace their fleet assets as needed. We're proposing an increase for the equipment for the new OPA school resource officer. The grant included, the grant they were able to receive included the reimbursement for a car for that officer, and that will be purchased out of the fleet fund for $60,825. And then we're also proposing an appropriation increase of $242,700 for an increase in grant funds that we got in the homeless shelter mitigation grant with the state of Utah. And so those funds will be utilized to purchase new equipment. And finally, we are proposing an increase for revenue and fleet of $249,175 to purchase new equipment throughout the city. And so those funds are transferred into fleet, and then the vehicles are then purchased out of the fleet fund. So the total proposed increase in the appropriation for the fleet fund is $833,325. In our IT internal service fund, we are proposing an increased appropriation of $700,000. And this is to help cover the equipment that is billed out to different departments, and so that it's charged out to the different departments, and then the revenue is recognized as that equipment is purchased for the different departments in the city. And Next is our major grants fund. We are proposing an appropriation increase of $300,000. The funds will be coming from a SPG reimbursable account that is from the early 2000s. That was part of a home loan ownership program, and these funds will be going to help fund the HELP program. And then finally, in the miscellaneous grants fund, we are proposing a total increase, use of fund balance of 170 or 1,750,000. 1.5 of that is to recognize additional lost revenue that was not recognized previously in prior appropriations, and then also to recognize the 250,000 that will be used on the new art piece in the Marshall White Center. Next is to recognize the Homeless Advocate Grant Award that the city received, which was for $90,350. And this grant will fund our 2 homeless advocates in the city. Next is to recognize our award of the Bulletproof Vest program that funds 50% of bulletproof vests that are replaced for our police officers. That award is $13,450. The next appropriation being proposed is to recognize the additional funds that we received for the homeless mitigation grant with the state of Utah, and that is $244,400. And finally, that grant is split between police and fire, and so the fire portion of that grant is $225,850. And finally, so the total proposed appropriation for the miscellaneous grant fund is $7,508,000. Oh, sorry, the total proposed increase in the appropriation for the city budget is $7,508,720 for your consideration.
Awesome. Thank you, Coralie.
Yep.
Any questions from the council before we go to public?
It's a really big group. Thank you for listening.
Yeah.
Chair,
It's
I
really
do
big.
have a question. A couple of slides ago, Coralie, and I don't mean to ask this as a gotcha question at all, and so if the answer is I don't know, that's an acceptable answer.
Okay.
But it's concerning the refuse truck that burned.
Yeah.
Seems like a lot of money to pay for a vehicle that was insured. How do we insure those kind of things?
They did find that it was covered by insurance, so the city will be reimbursed. I think we've actually received the check, so I think the total expense to the city will be about $25,000.
Okay.
I think the insurance.
Right. It just didn't wash to me.
Yeah, we weren't sure how long the insurance would take, so we wanted to get the money appropriated so they could make the purchase, and since that has happened,
Great
received-
answer. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Coralie.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing, so if you'd like to address the council on this topic, please step to the podium and state your name and limit your comments to 3 minutes. If you're online, you can raise your hand, and we'll recognize you there. And we also want to welcome Councilmember Myers, who I think has also joined us online as well.
Good evening. I'm Teresa Bramwell. I wasn't expecting to speak on this topic, but one thing jumped out to me that I just wanted to say that I recognized, and that is the $225,000 that went to the fire department for homeless mitigation from the state of Utah. I think that's very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, it doesn't look like we have anyone online either.
Chair seeing no movement either, and no hands online, I would make a motion that we close the public hearing on this item.
I'll second.
We have a motion to close the public hearing on this item by Councilmember Heyer, second by Councilmember Graff. This is a roll call or voice vote? Voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. All right. Any other discussion before we entertain a motion on the ordinance? All right.
Chair, I'd make a motion that we adopt proposed ordinance 2024-10.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Heyer and a second by Councilmember Graff to adopt proposed ordinance 2024-10. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Blair.
Aye.
Councilmember Chaburka.
Aye.
Councilmember Graff.
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Myers.
Aye.
Vice Chair White.
Aye.
Chair Ritchie.
Aye, and that passes.
And
Okay.
just as a note, that was Councilmember Blair that seconded that
Oh.
motion, not Graff.
Thank you. It's hard to see clear over there on the other far end, yeah. Thank you for that correction,
Yeah.
Councilmember Blair, or Councilmember Graff. Okay, up next we have Brandon Ripien here to address us on a proposed community plan amendment to the historic preservation in the Lynn Community Plan area. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair Ritchie and Council. I'm excited to talk to you about the update to the Lynn Community Plan. This is one of the first projects that I was assigned to, so it's been a good project, and it's been fun to get to know the members of the community. So just to give a little bit of background, there was an initiative that was started by the council to update the Lynn Community Plan or to update it to address historic preservation within that area. And the Planning Commission was asked to, or sent a letter from the City Council to update the Lynn Community Plan to address the concerns of the community specific to preserving its historic heritage. So this is the area that is within the Lynn Community Plan area. So it goes up to North Street on the north end. 12th Street is the south boundary line, and on the west boundary is the BDO, and the east boundary is Washington Boulevard. So it includes the 4th Street complex, as well as the UDOT Region 1 headquarters. So those are all within the Lynn community area. So as I conducted some research, I found out a lot about the historic structures along 2nd Street. There are also several along 7th Street. I learned about the Bingham Fort and the history of the Shoshone Nation within this area. So there's a lot of historical background, a lot of events that occurred in this area, as well as historic structures that have been preserved by the community, and the community is definitely engaged in the historic preservation of this area. So here's some images of some of the historic structures. There are also some historic farms, as well as monuments and markers that highlight the events and the structures that are within the Lynn community area. As I said before, the Lynn community is also known for, the area is known for the Shoshone Nation, using it as campgrounds, and also working with the pioneers that ended up settling this area as well. So there's a good relationship between them. As we drafted the updates to the Lynn Community Plan, we shared them with the Weber County Heritage Foundation, and as well, or as well as with the Landmarks Commission, and both groups agreed that that the proposed updates address their concerns, and they were in favor of the updates. Once we began drafting, we wanted to reach out to the public and share the ideas that we had to preserve the historic structures and historic features within the Lynn community. We did a postcard that we sent out to every resident in the Lynn community, as well as a link to an online survey. So we received several surveys, and we probably had 50 community members that attended the meeting at Heritage Elementary School. This is just kind of a snapshot of the different people that took the survey. And then here are some of the results of the survey. So the posters on the left-hand side, and then the survey data is, of course, on the right-hand side. So this did reflect that there were a lot of individuals, community members that were interested in preserving the historic buildings, as well as the land and the features within the area. So I'm just going to run through these pretty quick. So we asked questions such as, how should these historic structures be preserved? What should we do to identify or highlight the events that occurred in the areas or within this area? Asked if property owners think that the historic structures should be placed on the historic registry. And then we also had additional comments for other areas that could be preserved. So in the Lynn Community Plan text, so we updated or added in some background information to address the area's history and to help people understand the importance of what has occurred in the Lynn Community Plan as far as how it was originally developed and the relationships that were built between different parties and groups. We also added a section that talks about the historic preservation and what should be recognized or memorialized and why it was needed. We also added a portion or added some text that talks about a potential area that could be considered for a future park, historic park. This text provides some recommendations on how different properties or structures could be preserved and memorialized to highlight the area's future. So things such as placing monuments or markers or registering the historic structures on the Ogden City Register, as well as just promoting historic preservation within the community. So the Planning Commission reviewed the proposed updates to the Lynn Community Plan, and they voted unanimous to adopt the amendments to the Lynn Community Plan. So we would recommend that those updates be adopted as well. Any questions?
Questions?
I've got a couple questions.
Yes.
And I just, it relates to this project, but I guess because we had a couple of other requests a couple weeks ago about designating areas in the city as historic areas.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just curious, can you estimate how many hours or the type of resources that went into doing this whole project over the course of, a year, right?
Yeah, probably if we consolidated it, we could probably, I would say about 6 months, but yeah, there were some delays.
Well, we've been talking about longer than that, I guess. So yeah.
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 So, it was initiated in 2022. but yeah, if we could potentially consolidate it and do it in less than a year, but yeah, it did take about a year to accomplish.
Like, how many staff hours would you estimate?
That's a good
And like
question.
those posters and everything, we produced all of that?
Yes. Yeah, and then those were used for the online survey that we put together. So that's a good question.
Oh, no,
I'd
that's
have
okay.
to.
And you can tell me
I'll think about it and I'll give you an accurate answer.
Yeah, well, I just know
through an
that
email.
was one reason why,
Yeah.
you know, it was denied, was because of the amount of hours and resources that it takes to undertake this type of project. So
Oh, right,
I
for
think
sure.
that would be helpful. And then also, what are some other differences that, you know, I can point out a couple that would be different than the petition or the proposal that we had. One was, it seems like there was a lot of community engagement.
Absolutely.
Many people were part of the request to apply for it, and then a lot of residents participated in the surveys and et cetera, right? So that's a big difference.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah, I went and surveyed the community. So I just wanted to understand what was significant about the history of the area. And then I happened to actually run into individuals that promote historic preservation within the community. So that was that was just by luck. And but yeah, it was a big effort. We sent postcards out to every resident within the community, and hosted the community open house. Reserved the Heritage Elementary School. So there was a lot of time that went into just doing this for one community. But yeah, I feel like it was well received. So
Thank you.
yep, you bet.
Any other comments?
A
Councilmember
couple
Heyer?
of, you know, to kind of respond to Angela or Councilmember Chaburka, this community where it does have some open land, it appeared to be kind of a target to developers that saw it as a place to purchase, upzone, and build high-density housing. And my experience with this community, as is evidenced by how well they turned out for the open houses and whatnot, is that they're very passionate about the history that is there for our county. And so I sought to see, well, what could we do that would send the message that the history here is valuable and needs to be preserved and protected. And that's where I kind of brainstormed with Glenn a little bit one day, and we decided that perhaps changing the narration in the community plan was a good place to do that. And so I posted an initiative with the signature of a couple of other council members, and we embarked on this project. We've had a lot of really good input from the community members. This is one of those things. I mean, we talked in the work session about the general plan and how it's such a it's a generational thing. In my mind and in my view, this neighborhood is critical that we protect it and highlight its history. It's really unique and heartwarming, the relationships that were built through the history of between the Shoshone and the settlers at the time when they kind of met together, and the hardships that they endured together, and those things. I think if we were to surrender to the high density developments and plow under some of these historic properties, that we will never get that history back, and we'll never. I said on a work session a couple of weeks ago that I walked the Freedom Trail in Boston, and this is Weber County's Freedom Trail version of the Freedom Trail is this Bingham Fort walking tour that they have, and all of the monuments that are there, and I've just been so impressed over from my time on the Planning Commission as well as on the council at the energy that these residents put into to their community. And I think we needed to honor that in this narrative.
Thank you. Okay, we have, this is not a public hearing, but we'll receive public input. Oh, Vice Chair White?
Yeah, I have a question for Brandon. So we received quite a few emails regarding the potential of a park.
Mhm.
Should we be zoning that as an open space or an O2 zone? I mean, is there a reason why we're keeping it as an R2 or an R3? I think R2 or R3.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that you could consider. It would be separate from the community plan update. But it would be, yeah, it could be a petition either from the property owner or I guess initiated by the city. But yeah, it would be separate from the community update.
Just to follow up to that,
Okay,
I guess.
thanks.
Oh, go ahead. Something else.
She said thanks.
Oh, you bet.
Just because if we approve the historic zone, it doesn't mean that we're approving that the city's buying that park, because I heard that in some conversation too.
It's just highlighting that the property owner is interested. Well, the previous property owner was interested.
The late property owner.
Yeah, the late property owner had interest in having his property designated as like a historic park. There are some historic structures on the 5 acres that the previous property owner restored. So.
Yeah, and I don't have any argument with designating this area historic. I guess I just don't want it to feel like sometimes we give the impression to people that like the final vision is approved because we do one part, and so that's the only thing I just wanted to clarify
yeah.
is that that is an idea, but it's not something that we're deciding today.
Yeah, and it really is just the community plan is a guiding document, so it's recommending that the city look at this area as a potential future park.
Chair, if I may, just another question right on that subject, Brandon. If the current owner decides that they're not interested in moving this property toward a park, does this designation limit their ability to do what they wish with this property?
Not at all, unless the property was rezoned. Otherwise, putting this text in the community plan doesn't change how they can develop the property.
Thank you.
Yep, you bet.
Okay, all right. At this time, we'll receive public input on this item. If you'd like to address the council on this item, you may come to the podium, state your name for the record, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. If you're online, go ahead and raise your hand, and we'll get to you there. Welcome.
My name is Anna Keogh, 301 West 2nd Street, and I'm just really glad to be here tonight. I've already written a letter, so you already know that I think these updates are really good. The planning did a great job, and the history is concise and just did a really good job. A few years ago, it was really scary when a developer was going up and down the road talking to property owners who have large properties and trying to buy up a number of properties for that very purpose of tearing down the old structures and building multifamily units. And anyway, we got past that point, and I'm really excited to have this put in the plan so it would discourage anything like that in the future. And people that I've talked to, I know we're just suggesting a place for a park right now, but everyone is really, really excited. Because the problem with our historic neighborhood right now is that all the properties are privately owned and the public can only access them when we have an event and we open up private properties. But if we had a park there, and it's a perfect location, the park, right in the center of Binghamfort, and it has 3 structures on it. If the public owned the park, they could come there anytime, any day. They could read about the history of the area. They could go tour. They could come back, and it would just be perfect. Have I got 1 more minute?
Yeah.
I just want to say, I'll tell you what a FedEx driver said about the area that we're proposing, where the park goes. Terry Lanier lives on West 2nd Street, right where we turned down to this area. And a FedEx driver stopped and he couldn't find the address, 150 West 2nd Street rear, and it didn't make any sense to him. So she directed him to that little road, and he went down there, and there's 5 historic structures back there, lots of property and land. She was still standing by her driveway when he came back out about 10 minutes later, and he said, "Wow, it's a different world down there." And I thought, yeah, he could see it. It is. It's really different, and we really want to preserve that different world and make it distinctive so that the public can recognize it and enjoy it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna. We have 2 hands online. Let's go to Angel.
Good evening, Angel Castillo. I'd like to remind folks or get people to remember if you went to Anna Keogh's Meet the Shoshone event. It was a wonderful event that really highlights how special that particular neighborhood is. And we got there through a discussion for street naming because we wanted to make sure that our cultural heritage was represented for both the pioneers as well as the Shoshone. And it's something very, very special. And I think that we should, as much as we can, work with the citizens of that community to make it a park. Yes, I know that it's no guarantee, but it would be really, really wonderful, especially as we look forward to larger events coming into Ogden. This is a piece of who we are and what we stand for and our history, and it's special and it's magical. And that could be something really great for people experiencing Ogden when they come to visit for regular tourism as well as the super sporting event. So I encourage you to adopt this and keep in the back of your minds working with the citizens of that area to make it a park. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Aaron.
Hello, this is Erin Moore, Ogden City. I just wanted to make note. I have heard both in joint session and then also here in the city council meeting us referring to the Shoshone communities as camping and campgrounds. And I would like to make note that these were full communities and homesteads and lifestyles. And just because someone of a different culture perceives them as camping, that's not truly what they are. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Up next, we have Richard. Richard or Tammy or maybe both, and Jeremy.
My bet is Tammy.
Hi, everybody. It's Tammy Krieger. Rick and Jeremy are with me as well. Thank you to all that worked on this. Rich Heyer, Brandon, specifically planning. I just think this is the right thing to do. It's not going to limit any property owners. Those of us that have secured historic designation, we know it's a totally volunteer designation. It's up to the individual owners. It can be retracted. But what it does is it recognizes, as I'm so thankful the city is finally doing, the history here, and not only the history, but what's available to our current community, to the community at large, like Angel referenced. And we have tourists come from worldwide to stop by and see what we have in the Lynn community. It's a jewel in the rough right now. And I know those of you that are familiar with the area, you will see that the new owners of the single family historic properties, people are buying these up. They're fixing them up. It's a rare place, not only in Ogden, but all of northern Utah. Additionally, I know that some of the Weber County Heritage Foundation History in a Minute videos are being considered for educational purposes by Ogden City School District for some, I believe it's 4th grade. So there's a lot of things that this neighborhood has to offer, not only in recognizing our past, but in the current and the future. Specifically, please note on your calendars, May 18th at 10 a.m., we're having a formal Shoshone Bingham Fort Memorial dedication on the corner of Wall and 2nd Street, the northeast corner. And then afterwards, you all are invited to the oldest house in Ogden, which is our home at 159 West 2nd Street. We actually own 145 West 2. So we're going to have a little gathering here with refreshments and a little bit more history as well. So northwest corner, Rick corrected me. So thank you for your time. Hope to see you all on May 18th, 10 a.m.
Thanks, Tammy. Okay. Any other discussion, or do we want to go with a motion?
Chair, unless there's some more discussion, I think there's a lot to be said perhaps, but maybe it's redundant at this point. But I'd love to have the honor to make this motion that we adopt proposed ordinance 2024-11.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Heyer and a second by Councilmember Graff this time to adopt proposed ordinance 2024-11. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Chaburka.
Aye.
Councilmember,
Aye, excuse me.
Councilmember Graff.
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Myers.
We must have dropped.
Councilmember Blair.
Aye.
Is he there?
We can come back to him at the end. or-
Okay. Vice Chair White.
Aye.
Chair Ritchie.
Aye. And Councilmember Myers, are you with us or able to come off mute and vote on this? Okay. Okay, well, that passes. Thank you.
Chair Ritchie, if I could make a comment, I just want, I think Tammy Krieger said it really well, but I just want to make sure that people understand that this isn't to protect, this isn't a protection of the historic nature, other than, people can still build on their R1, R2, R3 in the same ways that they could before. So I just want to make sure that people understand that. I'm not quite sure, unless I missed something completely. They can still do that.
Yes, that's right.
And I'll add too that this neighborhood really rallied. I was on the planning commission when that investor was knocking on doors, and the community came and said, we need to take a look at this. And you've got stick-to-itiveness. You've been in it for the long haul, and you as neighbors made a difference for the place you live. And that's the definition of community engagement. So I congratulate that and really want to honor your efforts in doing for the place you live what you want to do.
Chair, also, I wanted to kind of give a pitch for that May 18th event too. Our mayor, I believe, is scheduled to speak at that. I've been asked to say a few words, and I think there are many others that are going to talk about the appropriateness of this and some of the things that really make this a neat place for our county. So May 18th, everybody.
Yep. If you're not suffering in the marathon, go to the
Yeah.
mayor, go to the Shoshone thing.
Maybe
Just
Becky said
just
they're
to
already done.
Councilmember Graff's point, I got to remember, it was over 30 years ago, Nick Baker, who has since passed, he was one of the first ones that I met in this community that was so passionate about its history. And I think he used to be the mayor until Anna won, the mayor of that community. And they have just always really watched over their area. Always been very engaged, and it's infecting, and I hope it infects the rest of our town.
With a great opportunity to do so coming up for sure, as we talked about in the work session. Okay, up next, we'll invite Barton Brierly to come and address us on the proposed rezone of 1450 Gibson Avenue. Welcome, Barton.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Ritchie and city councilors. This is a request to change the zone of a piece of property from M1, which is a light industrial zone, to C3, which is a community commercial zone. The applicant is Darcel Stuckey, and the owner was the Gene W. Sham Trust. So the location of this property is on Gibson Avenue. It's just south of 14th Street. And the petitioner has actually requested rezoning of two pieces of property. One is the one that they own, and the second is the rear portion of a property on 1483 Wall Avenue that it's owned by UDOT. UDOT is not an applicant for this. They have been contacted, and they've indicated that they are agnostic to the request. They weren't going to say that they're for it or against it. So this is the current zoning. As you can see, along Gibson Avenue, it's M1. Along Wall Avenue is the C3 zone, and the boundary is a bit squiggly between the two. Here's a map of the various land uses, kind of the purple or more industrial, the kind of oranges apartments. There is quite a bit of single family on Gibson Avenue. This was originally a single family neighborhood. It's transitioned to more industrial uses along there. The uses just to the west of the site are industrial type uses at the present time. This is the site. It's just over 2.5 acres. It's level. These are some of the other uses on Gibson Avenue. To the north, you'd have a lot of sort of industrial and industrial service type uses. Just on the south, you have this self-storage project, and there's another one underway. Along the east side, this is, you can see the single-family homes in that area, including some that are used for some kind of home occupation or uses. These are some other uses along the area. There's some vacant land there. One of our large employers, Fresenius, is just on the west side of Gibson, and they have purchased some of those houses and are incorporating them into their campus. So looking at this request, the first thing we looked at is the why. Why would we want to change from an industrial zone to a commercial zone, and specifically a commercial zone that allows multifamily housing? And looking at our community-based strategic plan, the strategic directive number 1 is economic development. We want people to say, I want to live in a community where there are well-paying employment opportunities that allow me to provide for my family. Manufacturing employment is very important, not just for the jobs themselves, but for the spin-off effects, where for every manufacturing job, it creates roughly 2 other jobs in other sectors. You can see the impacts of just an industrial job in earnings and in the gross domestic product. It's higher wages in the industrial sector. And you can see what's happened in Ogden. We're very blessed to have this. The BDO is a place for employment, and we've been very successful in attracting businesses to BDO. In fact, just 4 years ago, we had 400 acres available. Last year, we're down to 87, so you can see the rapid pace of development there. So the general plan encourages attraction of new high-quality jobs, creation of new high-quality jobs for residents through business support. So looking at this piece of property, it's level, it's an industrial neighborhood, it's on an industrial street. It's really well suited for industrial. I think just since the work session, we've been working with UDOT on another project that's going through an industrial area, and is going to require removal of some industrial businesses. We really want to keep those businesses in Ogden, so we're scrambling to find, okay, where can businesses go? And so we're really concerned about loss of industrial land, and we'd really like to see this develop for some sort of employment use. On the flip side, I did mention C3 does allow multifamily housing. So is there a need for multifamily housing? The answer is yes in Ogden. Do we have enough land to accommodate the needs? That's the next thing. This is just looking at WFRC's household forecast, what it'll be in the future, translating that to how many dwelling units we'll need in the future, and just how much land we'll have to accommodate that. So projecting that we'll need about 3,600 new sort of mid-rise apartments, 20 units per acre or more, the typical kind that you would see in a C3 zone. By 2040, we'll need about 3,600 more. Do we have enough land to accommodate that? Just in what we've got approved and in review and under construction, we've got 2,800. So you can see that just what's being built now will meet a great deal of that need. And just what can we accommodate? We've done the Make Ogden Downtown Plan, of real emphasis on jobs and housing in the downtown area. It's expected by 2040 to accommodate about 3,500. And, I didn't do the numbers on this of just how much could be accommodated in those C2 and C3 zones. Sort of a back calculation, about 1,700 just through redevelopment of what's existing in C3 zones. So kind of the long story short is we have a need for new multifamily, and we have more than enough land to accommodate that right now. Looking at retail needs, retail is rebounding. Went through a tough time with the changes in the economy, but Utah's growing, Weber County's growing, and starting to rebound. Office went through a really tough time through the recession, through the pandemic, through changes in just how people work, but it's rebounding too. So specifically, the area along Wall was rezoned to commercial a few years ago for the purpose to spur commercial development along there. Looking at the zone change policies, there should be buffering between types of uses. So you have the Fresenius, the heavy industrial west of Gibson, and that's one of our big industrial employers, primary employers, brings a lot of jobs to the community. It's definitely kind of employer we want to keep and encourage to expand. So then you go to more light industrial on the east of Gibson and to commercial. So you have that sort of transition. What the proposal would be to put between that heavy industrial and that commercial residential, which would not provide a good buffer between uses. It actually could create some conflicts with other industrial uses in the area. So zoning should reflect the prevailing character of the district to the largest extent possible. And this area is becoming, well, it is transitioning to industrial and has more industrial uses on it. So we feel that it should stay industrial. I did mention that really the request is to change it to a commercial zone. And so with commercial uses, like I said, there's some rebound there. This isn't a particularly great commercial area. It doesn't have frontage on the street. You wouldn't see a restaurant there. You wouldn't see really an office there or other sorts of uses. So it's not really good for commercial. So just the conclusion, our industrial land supply is growing and the supply is shrinking. While the retail and office land is rebounding, this site just is not well suited for retail or office. We have enough multiple family land to meet needs through 2040 and beyond. And this site is poorly suited for multifamily development. So the Planning Commission has recommended that you deny the requested zone change.
Thank you. Questions for Barton?
I have a couple questions.
Yes.
Number one, you mentioned a UDOT project that you were saying you're losing some N1 property. Where is that located?
The 24th Street interchange.
Mm. And then, did you say when this was changed to M1, this whole area?
I did not. It was about 6 years ago. I think it was about 2018, maybe 2016.
Thank you.
Was it in association with the community plan that was done then?
Yes.
Yeah, that was more than 6 years ago then.
Oh, yeah, that was the change of the Wall Avenue to commercial, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, it was changed to, Gibson was changed to industrial in the 60s.
Okay. I guess I still need to, I never have quite connected with the idea that we petition to have a C zone so that we can do an R use. You know, a residential use. That's never computed to my mind. And I really do hope that we can do a notice of pending ordinance or something at some point soon to change the uses in our commercial zones to be appropriate with the C uses. I don't think it can wait until our general plan update. I think it needs to be done before that. So that's just ancillary to this discussion, but I think we should do that.
Okay. We have the petitioner here. If we'd like to offer him some time to come up and address the council. I know he emailed a map to all the council members, so has everyone had a chance to review that map? I think he'll be referencing that in his.
Is that something that you can pull up that you have on your email?
Yeah, I think Eric's working on.
I'd like to address that if I could.
Yeah, there it is. Oh, it was there. It's there again.
Yeah, perfect. That is super. Well, thank you for allowing me to spend a few minutes with you, and I certainly appreciate the time. I need to go back to when this all started to give you a little bit of a context as to where we're coming from. We had arrived at the decision that we were going to sell the property at the passing of my mother-in-law, who is Jean Sham. And we had made the determination that we wanted to sell the property. We had no need of keeping it. And so we went, at that same time, we received in the mail one of those postcards like you were talking about in the Lynn community plan that was in the prior presentation. And it talked about a public notice or public hearing that you were having about the potential establishment of a Gibson community redevelopment district. And that was a year ago in February. And we met with Damon Berman and Sarah, is it pronounced Meese, there in the economic development area. And they were just getting ready to present that to the city council the following week. We went in and we met with them and we said, we're interested in selling this property. You know, what is it that you have envisioned for that property? We had been raising Arabian horses on the property and had enjoyed that property for about 60 years. And so we were interested in what the plans were for the Gibson community plan. And we went in and we met with Damon, and he indicated that it was, most of it had been rezoned to C3, and that they were looking for a lot of different things in that area. But I read from that development or from that proposal that went to the city council, which each one of you, besides I think Council Member Graff, you were not there, and Council Member Myers was not there, but all of the rest of you were there. And that just said that they were interested in creating this district for the purpose of supporting the renovation of desirable existing buildings, the removal and redevelopment of outdated, vacant, and underutilized existing buildings, strengthening Ogden's employment and tax bases by creating locations that businesses can relocate or expand, improving public infrastructure and connections, providing open space and creating meaningful and appropriate connections, and facilitating the development and enhancement of single and multifamily residential units. And it's believed that with the assistance of this redevelopment agency, this section of the community can contribute greatly to the economic well-being of Ogden City and improve the quality of life for citizens and visitors, while helping to continue to create vibrancy along the Ogden River. And as I mentioned, you approved that unanimously. So Mr. Burnham indicated that what was really being proposed for that area and what they were establishing this district for was to go out and see if they couldn't get a budget to help in the development of that area. And we said, well, we've got right next door to us a personal storage unit project that's being built. And he says, that was something that we had hoped to get ahead of, but that is not something that was envisioned for this community area. And we said, okay. So we went out and we talked to several people, the people that were developing the townhomes there along 17th Street and that project going on down 17th Street and on the corner of Wall and 17th Street. And they said, we might be interested in your property. And we said, okay, great. And we left it at that. And over a course of months, we actually received 2 offers for our property. One from the people that developed those townhomes and apartment buildings on 17th and Wall. And another one from the people that actually rezoned the property just west, or actually rezoned the property for your, or for their townhomes project that West States companies had actually developed. And then they came back and they talked to the city because it needed to be rezoned into a C3 zone for them to put the project that they wanted to put on our property. And we're told by the city that they would not rezone it to C3. And so they backed out of the offers that we had for the property. At that point in time, I went back and I reread every planning commission meeting and every city council meeting agenda from the time that the community, the Gibson community plan was put in place in 2016. And it was really amazing that I found that in every single case, that if you look at that map up there, I'm just seeing that that hasn't come across very well in because all of that should be in pink, clear over to the UDOT property, and all along Wall Avenue, clear over to 14th Street and beyond, and that the only thing that is remaining in that Gibson Avenue plan, Gibson Avenue community there, are our property, the Sham property, the UDOT property, and the rest of it is all in pink. And so when the presentation from the Planning Commission says that they're explaining that our goal is for multi-housing similar to the apartments and townhomes along 17th Street, we're only interested in selling the property. Whatever your decision is not going to change the fact that we're going to go out and sell the property. What is concerning to us is that if we don't rezone it to C3, so that it's like everything else that you have rezoned to C3 over the last 8 years, that there will be the ability of the Planning Commission to come in and do exactly what they did on those two properties, which are the X's that are there. Those are the personal storage units. Those are the only thing that they said when we talked to Damon Burnham that wouldn't be allowed in a C3 zone is the personal storage units. The only place that they're allowed is in an M1 zone. And both of those properties were approved on just a staff approval from the Planning Commission. And we didn't want storage units on our property. You know, we have kind of a tie to that property and how we've enjoyed that property, and planning and personal storage units were not what my father and mother-in-law would have envisioned for that property. So as I went back and I went through all of those meetings that were back there, this is what I found from the Gibson Community Plan that you approved, or that those members of you that were here, Councilman or Council Member Blair and Council Member Heyer and Council Member White, that you approved unanimously that you would rezone the area to C3 along Wall Avenue to spur commercial development, high priority. You would rezone the unused UTA property area south of 18th Street and from Gibson to properties facing center to R15 immediately, with future MU options, which Councilmember Heyer, you were talking about having it be a mixed use as opposed to just a C3, once again on a high priority. You would increase the community population to work towards attracting a school, church, or a community facility. You would rezone, and this is the only reference that's made to M1 in the entire community plan. You would rezone to M1 everything west of Southern Pacific Railroad, high priority. You would enforce and regulate activities leading to air, soil, water contamination, especially by salvage yards. And they specifically said that they wanted to have this one amortize the salvage yard to be relocated from the community. If you look to the north of our property, that it shows auto repair towing. If you look to the south, to the south of the second X, it has a part in there that says auto towing. And if you look up into the C3 area going east on 17th Street, there's also another one that is an auto or towing. Those were three areas that were really referenced as being salvage yards. and that it was voted that you would amortize those salvage yards if they wouldn't come into compliance with the new regulations that were going to be, that you would require masonry screening walls when screening from public view is required. You would amend the ordinance language to require screening walls between manufacturing and residential uses. And you would encourage more substantial landscape buffers between different uses. Then we went to 2018 or 2019, and even continuing with the Gibson plan, you would prioritize sidewalk installation in residential areas toward commercial centers. You would require installation of curb and gutter with all new developments, no deferrals, high priority. You would seek opportunities to widen travel lanes and repave surfaces along Gibson, Center, Pacific, 17th, and 18th Street. You would add additional street lighting with minimum of 1 light per intersection, 2 per block face. In order to facilitate redevelopment, additional investment is needed to upgrade the infrastructure. Installation of these systems would need to be a joint effort between private developers and Ogden City. Just this last legislature, the governor passed House Bill 572 that is allowing you now to use tax increment bonds to help in the development with all of that. Every decision that was made by the Planning Commission and the City Council since the implementation of that Gibson Community Plan has in place these words. Staff explained that the proposal to rezone from M1 to C3 is consistent with the Gibson Community Plan, where the zoning map shows the property potentially becoming C3. Staff also stated the community plan encourages increasing community population, as well as having properties west of Wall attract commercial development. Staff recommended approval of the rezoning. That's found in every one of the decisions that this council and the Planning Commission have made. Many of you participated in those decisions.
So is that essentially the point then, is that you believe the community plan supports the rezone?
We vehemently agree with that, and that it doesn't support staying in an M1.
That's current. Okay.
And the reason for that is because we don't want to have staff approval available when we sell this property, even though we're not going to be involved with it at all. We're not proposing to develop it, to do anything with it. We're just suggesting that we're going to go out and sell the property. And if it isn't changed to C3, the same thing's going to happen to that property as has happened to a couple of other properties in that M1 position, that it's going to be approved for something that you're not going to have any input on.
Right. Okay.
So
thank you very much. I wonder if we can have Barton come and respond to that as far as the community plan supporting everything that was just shared with us at that point.
Yeah, can I get my
And sorry about your map. The map that we did receive was pink all the way through, so I'm not sure how that came across that way, but thank you.
Okay, so this is the community plan that we looked at, and he's correct that there is plans for rezoning to R15 with future MU options. There's plans to rezone to C3 in this area. And if you see in this map, this shows you where they are. So the area that this used to be zoned M1 along Wall Avenue. And the community plan says, let's change that from the M1 industrial to C3. So that rezoning has occurred. Now, you could say the UDOT property is actually within that ellipse. So I think you could actually make a case that the rezoning the back half of that UDOT property would be consistent to C3 would be consistent with the general plan. Talk about the mixed use and the housing, you can see where those are. That would be the areas south of 17th Street. Where you don't see any change is along Gibson Avenue. In fact, on the west side, you see future M2 options. So this is M1 with the possibility of going to an M2. This is not in an ellipse there. So the plan says this should stay M1. So that's why we would say that the community plan supports this staying M1. And really the C3 was along Wall Avenue, which has already been completed.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or discussion from the council? I don't know. I don't think so. What's that?
Up to you.
I mean, I think if you just maybe a quick response.
I can do that.
Okay.
Use his map.
Okay. Thank you.
If you look at that property or that area right below that red ellipse, the thing is, this council and the planning commission has rezoned to C3 everything down to those dark spots.
Can he use the pointer? Would that be possible? Because I just want to make sure I know what he's talking about.
I have a painter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be helpful. Thank you, Barton. I see something. There's a spot.
Okay. So, okay. Okay. Sounds good. Okay. So everything down to following that dark spot coming up here down to Gibson Avenue, and everything going over here to our property, all of that is now zoned C3. This area right in here, this dark spot right here, is now zoned M1. This is where that second personal storage unit project that Mr. Brierly mentioned, that's where it's being built right now. This is where the one personal storage shed, those are the two X's on the map that I showed. And this is the part that Mr. Brierly has mentioned in his recommendation to deny our request. This is the UDOT property right here. In his recommendation, he says that there is probable reason to rezone that to C3. And then this part right here, the one just north of our property, is that other auto towing place that would be, as part of the community plan was that you were going to amortize that because they weren't compliant. And as he's indicated, this is everything here in 2016 when that plan was approved. It was all residential, except for one strip right here that is a dog grooming and boarding location.
Dog's back here.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm a big fan.
Anyway.
Can you verify that, Barton, about the
C3.
C3. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The map that I provided to you gave you.
Yeah, I think this one does too. I just want to make sure. Yeah, so that's all C3. So when when was that designated C3?
It's about 2017, 2018.
That's the map that's.
Yeah, I mean, it's very complicated to me because I'm getting both sides of the argument, but I just have a very hard time not allowing for this change when I know there's past conversations we can either verify or not, but to me, it appears that that is what was happening. So I guess I just don't get the hang up. I understand that in the perfect world, you would want to have all these different, zoning kind of flowing out. I don't know exactly what to call it. But, I mean, I've been on that street many times to Dom's, of course, and knocking doors. And there's residents living there. So, to me, I guess I just feel a little bit uncomfortable denying something across the board when it appears that it's not too unusual in this area and based on the history as well. So I just have a challenge with that.
Chair, and just to kind of turn that coin over, as you kind of alluded to, is in my role on the Planning Commission, I remember when we worked on the Gibson Community Plan and the homes that were there and residential, all the zone was changed and they became non-conforming. They could still live there, they could improve their properties, but as soon as it turned or they were vacant for a year, then they fell into the current zone. I also remember Fresenius buying up homes on Center Street, removing them, and we eventually vacated Center so that they could expand, and that's immediately adjacent to this M1 designation as it stands now. So Barton's desire to hold this in M1, or planning's desire to hold this in M1, makes sense because one of our biggest employers and a huge manufacturer is there and growing. And to not allow them to continue to grow because we've given up space to multifamily might be a mistake. So I understand that as well. And Mr. Stuckey, I just want to commend you for your preparedness. You know your stuff and you've done your homework, and we appreciate your prepared conversation with us this evening. I do.
I appreciate that history, but I guess I'm not weighing one company's desire to grow over one property owner's desire to do what they want to do with their property.
Yeah, and that was just an example.
Yeah.
Growth has taken place there, and I think it's an excellent example of manufacturing property.
Yeah.
I don't know if Councilmember Myers can hear us, if he's connected or if he's not. I know he wanted to weigh in on this as well. If you're there, go ahead and come off mute and share with us. Looks like maybe you did.
Yeah, thanks very much. To me, I'm very familiar with this property, very familiar with that area, and to me, I also feel that it's always traditionally been a residential area and a very rural area. I understand the city, the way that was zoned, but I do support the petitioner in his desire to use that property to make it be commercial. I think that also has some interest for residents that are immediately across the street on the south side of 17th Street to protect their interest from having land right in front of them become M1 or to be M1 for other uses. I think that gives that more of a residential feel if it becomes housing or some other project instead of being industrial. That's just my personal feeling. I don't have any questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And Vice Chair White, I don't know if you would like to share any of your thoughts or if you have any questions.
I don't have any questions. I guess I'm curious if it does sell and the next person wants to develop it in the way that they want, they can go through this process as well, right? Is that as a petition?
Is that a Barton?
I just wonder. I mean.
Yeah, I think that's accurate, but yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
Okay. But I think what the petition's concern is that if it sells, it may develop into something that the family was hoping wouldn't develop in that area. If I understood that correct, yeah.
We're just concerned that it would be developed into personal storage units.
Yeah.
That we would prefer not, but we have no control.
Sure. Okay.
Which we've addressed, right?
Any other? Oh,
The only other comment too, because I did see that there was a resident that commented that they didn't support the change because of the condition of Gibson, but based on, I mean, what the petitioner was just mentioning to us, as well as the future plans for that area, that street will be fixed up and changed a little bit. So, you know, again, I feel like there's some challenges because there are people living right across the street. So I guess, you know, for me, that's just a hard challenge to say, well, then we can't have more people living there because there are already people living there. And there'll be people living not too far away, so it's a challenge.
Okay, yeah, sorry. We are accepting public input. Nice segue. So at this time, we'll invite those who'd like to address the council on this issue to please come up and state your name and limit your comments for 3 minutes. And we will, if you're online, go ahead and raise your hand and we'll address that. Yeah, thank you.
My name is Stacy Price and I live on Gibson Avenue. I've lived there for 45 plus years. I've been through the Gibson Community Plan a few times, dealt with the redevelopment agency. I feel like this property wants to be sold for the highest buck. Us residents are going to be left there with the fallout throughout all of these changes and all of the zoning changes, the redevelopment, the Gibson Community Plan. There hasn't been any updates to the roads, to the lighting. There's no sidewalks down in that area. And now they want to do multifamily homes down there. That's going to add more traffic. We've dealt with Fresenius's traffic. The city listened. They opened up 14th Street. Fresenius now exits out 14th. We don't have a lot of traffic down on there. You're going to put down, you rezone this to commercial, we're going to have more apartments there with more traffic. And you've got the apartments on 17th Street where 17th Street has been updated. The utilities, the sidewalks, the lighting, everything's been updated. Well Avenue has the apartments right around the corner. That has been updated as well. 12th Street has more apartments going up. That has been updated. Gibson Avenue has not been updated. And Mr. Stuckey does not live down on Gibson. The residents that are left there are against the apartments down there because of what it's going to bring down there. We would much rather have the storage sheds down there than we would the apartment buildings. So we are against it. And if there's going to be any more type of development like homeowners or residential, converting that back to residential, we would like the area improved. Since this has come up into the city's business, now our neighbors are being harassed. The company that is to the north of this property, it has been a towing company, a mechanical shop, storage sheds. It has been there, it has never been harassed. Well, now they want them to conform to the new rules of the zoning that just was adopted by the Planning Commission this year. And so now they're being harassed that they need to comply with the new standards. They've been there for years. They're being harassed. Another residential on the north side of the towing company and the mechanical shop, he's being harassed for what's on his property, all because we want to sell this property commercial to the highest bidder, with us residents down there being harassed. We don't have the money to upgrade our property. Back when you were talking on the first Gibson Community Plan, they put constraints on us where we weren't able to upgrade our property. We weren't able to build onto our property because they wanted us to sell our property to Fresenius. Well, now we can upgrade our properties a little bit, but now we're in a situation where we have all of this stuff around us where the city's come in and said we're blighted. The neighbors down there, we're happy where we're at. We don't want any more apartments down there. We don't want this to the highest bidder.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening, Teresa Bramwell. The interesting part is that I can relate to this lady and I can relate to this gentleman at the same time because I've experienced all of these things, every one of these things with the properties I have owned or lived on in Ogden City. I actually grew up with Arabian horses, so we have that in common, and now I have fourplexes that were on that land where I had Arabian horses growing up. So basically, to you, Ogden City doesn't want you to be there. So probably what you care about, they don't care because they've already zoned you out. You're now M1, so your residents, they don't even want you there. So your opinion probably doesn't matter. This guy, he wants to just sell his property. He's had it under contract twice. He's had 2 buyers that wanted to purchase it. That's now fallen through. So now he's still sitting in this situation where he's handcuffed to this property and he can't do anything with it. So both of these people are in hell because of whatever is going on over here. I'm assuming the people are in the room. And you now have the choice to make whether you're going to make this guy's hell a little bit better or whether you're going to make this lady's hell a little bit worse. She isn't supposed to be there anyway, and eventually whenever anything happens to her house, she'll be gone. So work it out. But, keeping everybody in hell isn't really, happy for the people who are being kept that way. And I feel like there's a lot of discrimination going on, especially if everything else has been able to be C3 and this guy specifically can't. It just doesn't even make sense. And this lady's already M1, so you already want the storage units on her house. So work it out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Travis Pate, Ogden resident. I had the opportunity to walk through a lot of the Gibson area plan as it was being adopted. It was kind of strange because it was the last area of the city to even have a community plan, and it took clear till 2016 to get it. And it's unfortunate because even in the Gibson area plan, it says we will plan to rename this neighborhood the Riverside neighborhood. So just rename it the Riverside neighborhood instead of naming it the Gibson plan with a plan to change the name to the Riverside neighborhood. And if we're going to go by the biggest asset we have for that neighborhood, it is the river. And then we have Fresenius, and it was discussed in 2016 that, let's see, the affordable property of those houses that have their backyards to our property and we can claim right to Gibson Avenue, we'll just land grab that. But the brownfields towards 12th Street, which are completely vacant and not being used, we're not going to use. And so it was a frustration of mine back then that you have property that faced 12th Street that was salvage yards and that was not being adequately used for a purpose that, because it was not even an active salvage yard. They didn't expand that way. They expanded into the residential neighborhood, which was the rural Gibson area neighborhood. And Gibson, I think the aspect that we just barely adopted the Lynn community plan towards historic preservation. Yeah, that was on the agenda long before the other petitioners came on the agenda. And yet they got prioritized and rezoned without a development agreement. And so the same thing, if this is going to be rezoned, then there should be a development agreement in place that says, here's the density, here's what can be, what would complement the neighborhood. Here's, even though it's like on the opposite side of Gibson, yes, we might want to preserve commercial, but we didn't look at expanding Fresenius towards 12th Street, which was already a blighted area. And so I think as the last speaker said, there is a strange dynamic here. But to just rezone without a development agreement, we gave everyone in the Lynn community, again, Ogden's oldest community, carte blanche, so to speak, to build the densities that this new R2 zone allows. And so I think the C3, it would be premature if you don't deny if you deny the petition today, great, but it'd be premature to accept the petition if there's not a development agreement that says, here's the densities that we'd like and here's how to develop that. Because it's just, it continues to, we act as if there's not any leverage. You talked about the IGA block, oh, we don't have any leverage. We bought and surrendered that property with no development agreement. We continue to act as a developer and a landlord, but we don't have accountability. So I'd just say, deny the petition, but then, like I said, if it comes back with the development agreement, then consider it. Thank you.
Yeah, if you're welcome to come and address the council you have 3 minutes.
I won't need it.
Well,
I would just restate again the way I started. The regional commercial C3 zone allows for a wide variety of uses, including neighborhood, community, and regional commercial uses, lodging and restaurant uses, institutional uses, some light industrial uses, and medium and high-density residential uses. Our petition is a request for a rezone and not for a specific development. There is no specific proposal or development agreement proposed with the rezone. If the rezone is approved, any development proposal will be processed and vetted through an administrative review process that you already have in place. Our intent is just to sell the property. We don't want to have M1 zoning there for fear that the people that would come in and make us an offer, and we're not taking the highest offer, we're just taking any offer as we take a look at that. They would be able to come in and through just nothing more than a staff approval, put something in there that we would prefer not to see there, but know that we have no control over what that happens once we sell the property. We're going to sell the property. We'll let you deal with the problems of what to do with that property through that administrative processes that you have in place.
thank you. And sorry, I know you've already stated your name could you just state your name for the recorder?
Darcel Stuckey, and I'm the petitioner.
Thank you, Darcel. Any other comments or anybody online? Doesn't look like we have any more. Any further discussion?
Well, yeah, and I feel for the residents over there, and I think I have heard also some of those challenges that have been on Gibson because of this plan. And I think, regardless of what goes there, that street, I think, is on the docket to get revamped in some way. So I hope that will alleviate some of those challenges for you all over there.
All right. We have that item before us. Yeah, a lot of choices, a lot of thoughts here. I don't know if there's a motion that somebody would like to make on this item.
Chair, I would make the motion. I think enough has been said. I don't only need to reiterate it, but that we deny the petition and not require an ordinance to be drafted.
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion by Councilmember Heyer to not adopt the rezone and therefore not adopt any resolution, with a second from Councilmember Graff. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Graff.
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Myers.
Nay.
Councilmember Blair.
Aye.
Councilmember Chaburka.
No.
Vice Chair White. Chair Ritchie.
Aye.
Sorry, I couldn't get off mute. Aye.
Okay. So that passes. That denial passes.
The motion passes.
Yes, the motion passes. Thank you, Councilmember Heyer. Okay. Up next, we have, or any, I don't know, yeah, those that would like to
make a statement.
make a statement, please. Yes, Councilmember Chair.
I don't know if Vice Chair White wanted to say something.
Vice Chair White, did you have something to say?
So just really quickly, I think that it doesn't stop anybody from coming in that has a great idea that wants to, a developer that might put it and wanted to do a C3 or whatever, R2. It could be any zoning change to that. It doesn't stop anybody from doing the petition further down the road. I just think that it's premature to where I don't think that it exactly is laid out in in the current plan, and I just think that we need to follow what the Planning Commission's recommendation was.
Thank you.
And I was just going to say that, you know, I don't totally agree with any particular plan that's put forward. It's just a challenge for me when I hear about the history of the conversations that happen and that our staff in some way was not all on the same page at different times. And this is not the first time I've heard that, so I'm not trying to, you know, say it's one person's problem or one developer's issue or one landowner's issue. But this happens to people, and hopefully it won't happen moving forward, but that has been the case, and I just don't appreciate that happening to our residents and our landowners in our city. And then I also certainly feel for the residents there that are feeling pushed out, and I hope that those businesses are not being harassed, but I'd be happy to go talk with them and find out what's happening. It might be that they aren't in compliance with certain regulations that have been passed, and there's not much we can do about that because the regulations have already been put in place. But I definitely want to hear more about what's happening with them, because there are people living there, and we can't just assume those people are just going to disappear one day. They may pass those homes down from family member to family member or from others, and they have a right to be there. I guess, you know, they live there already and they have a right to be there and have a pleasant place to live. So whatever ends up being across the street or around you, I hope that's the case.
Chair, if I can make a comment or two also to Councilmember Chaburka's point. I wasn't privy to every conversation that happened, but I don't recall the version that Mr. Stuckey reiterated. It's my recollection is pretty well what Barton rehearsed to us.
Oh, yeah, and I wasn't talking about your conversations or any council members' conversations.
But as a council member and even as a planning commissioner prior, I was very impressed when we did the community plan in the Gibson community at the participation level that they participated. My recollection is that when that community plan was done, they had a higher per capita participation than any other had ever done. So they really weighed in. They were very involved in that community plan also. And there's never been any intent to force anybody out or to put anybody in hell. There was never been an eminent domain threat. Everybody can do with their property what they wish to do and what is legal to do. And so I just don't remember the conversations that would have made that confusing. I just don't recall them.
Well, I remember very confusing conversations about
I'm not saying it's never happened.
Of that whole area since I've been here. So,
that's just my recollection. And I think people do tend to hear what they want sometimes, and I'm guilty of it too. I mean, I think there's a human nature aspect to that. So I'm pretty sure we're going to have some miscommunications in the future just because it's the nature of things. But
So just a couple things. I want to agree with Councilman Heyer's assessment of the C3 zone as it pertains to multifamily housing. I think that's going to be something that will probably be taken up in the new general plan and Zone Ogden. But if there's anything that we can do prior to that to ensure that we end up with multifamily housing where we want multifamily housing rather than where it's just currently allowed in a C3, I think that would be important. And then secondly, in years prior on the Planning Commission, we talked about doing away with personal storage facilities in Ogden city limits because they don't generate the kind of business that we're looking for. And I'd like to just make record and a request that we take that up so that we don't end up with more things that will, storage units don't go anywhere. They're just a cash register for the owner and don't generate any jobs, and they don't generate a robust tax base either. So I think we need to take a look at reenacting that action to disallow them in Ogden.
Thank you. Councilmember Myers, I don't know if you have anything you want to share as well at this point. Okay.
No, I'm perfect, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity to speak, but thanks very much. I don't have any other feelings.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right. We'll next invite Brandon Rippian, our senior planner, to present to us the proposed creation of the Flex Industrial Zone. Welcome, Brandon.
Thank you, Chair Ritchie and Council. The applicant is Acilia Investments, and staff has worked with them to create a new flex industrial zone, which allows for a variety of commercial and manufacturing uses that creates what we call flex space. So flex industrial development or flex space allows for a variety of uses. The types of buildings allow for businesses to use the space and adapt it over time as the businesses change or grow. It allows a business to have office space as well as warehousing or other types of manufacturing uses. So it really is a popular land use and has become, just a really desirable type of development. One of the great things about the flex industrial development is most, if not all, of the, operations are within an enclosed building. And so as far as odors, smoke, or other nuisances, it does not produce those types of nuisances outside of the building. When we reviewed the flex industrial zone with the city council, there were some concerns about the flex industrial zone if it was proposed adjacent to the airport. And so there are some uses that we have placed limitations on and added some footnotes in the land use table that address specific uses within proximity to or that are within the airport approach surface and the transitional surface, as well as limiting uses that are considered public use, such as schools, churches, and those types of uses. So just to make sure everyone is aware, so the petitioner is planning on bringing a petition to rezone a property that's just south of the airport. It's west of the Kemp Jet Services, as well as the, I just blinked on the name, the Northrop Grumman building. So that may be coming in front of you soon. So this is just a zoom in of the property that they would like to rezone to that flex industrial zone if it is adopted. So as I said before, there are uses that we have proposed to be limited if the flex industrial zone is proposed in proximity to the Ogden Hinckley Airport. Those uses would include outdoor entertainment, things that would create dust or smoke or emissions, churches or houses of worship, so gathering spaces. We've also looked at limiting trade or vocational schools if there are more than 30 persons, including the instructors that are part of the school, as well as single-family dwelling units. So we would not allow for a night watchman quarter to be allowed within the transitional zone or the approach zone, and as well as a business that is located on a property without a main building. So all of those uses would not be allowed adjacent to the airport. As I said, we would also restrict public uses, such as like a school, as far as a public school or a charter school. We would not allow libraries or the other types of uses that would encourage public gathering. We reduced the outdoor storage to a maximum of 15% for uses within the flex industrial, and that applies to all of, or wherever the flex industrial zone would be proposed, the outdoor storage would be limited to 15%. And then there's a option to do a conditional use that would allow for someone that is in the flex industrial zone to do 25% outdoor storage as long as it's a finished product. We also have removed a few uses that we felt were conflicting with the airport or competing with the airport. So those things were aviation fuel, as well as storage of fuel, aviation fuel storage tanks or fuel farms. We've also, like I said, reduced the outdoor storage from 25% to 15% and removed the outdoor entertainment options and made a note that height limits could be reduced within the surrounding area of the Ogden-Hinckley Airport. We've added some text that helps improve, or we feel helps improve, the appearance of a flex industrial building to create some vertical building breaks and variation just to help improve the building facades. And then we've also added this restriction that we felt should have been in the ordinance, or in the ordinance already, that talks about creating a buffer near the airport fence that limits structures and trees or any of those types of vegetation that would create a nuisance or create hazards to the airport. So Planning Commission recommended, or I guess voted unanimously to approve the flex industrial zone, and we would also recommend that the flex industrial zone be adopted. Any questions?
I do have a question that has come up in my mind. That is there any protection that, maybe protection is the wrong word, but provision that would keep someone, or keep a use having a perpetual approval to be there? I mean, should things change? I mean, you know, where it's in proximity to the airport, I think it's appropriate that we look to put uses that are that service an aviation use. But in the meantime, this is probably okay. But unless that becomes the case, and I just wonder if there's something that would help us to not have to live with something in perpetuity if the occasion comes to be that it's
maybe that's a good question for the attorney. I don't know.
Maybe I just
I am not aware of any. I'm not aware of a tool that we could use to do that, unless someone else is.
So yeah, we're talking about private property and what people can do on private property. In general, once a use is legally established, it can stay there as long as it continues to operate. You can create what's called an amortization period. You can do it for some uses where if you change the zoning, you can say, okay, now you have to give them enough time to recoup their investment. So you could say, okay, if we change that, then the uses have to, you know, be removed within 30 years or 20 years or some time. But that's pretty unusual to do.
Yeah, sure. I'm familiar with that, but it just kind of clicked in my mind. I wonder if we're marrying ourselves to something that we're going to hate later. That's all.
Are you thinking about it in terms of where this is located relative to the
exactly.
airport?
That's the whole idea.
Yeah.
That's the whole concern is
The
where it
FAA
is.
changes something and then,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's the biggest concern.
If there aren't any questions, any more questions for Brandon, we have our petitioner here. If you'd like to come up and address, take a few minutes and address the petition. If you don't mind stating your name.
My name is Jake Jackson. I'm with the Silly Investments. And first of all, I want to thank the councilmen and women for hearing this. I know we've been to the working session like 4 different times, and it's taken a lot of time. So I'm thankful for that and thankful for you guys hearing us. I want to think we've answered a lot of the questions that have come up from this zone. And Councilman Heyer, I think the first and foremost answer to your question in terms of, can we lock this down in perpetuity? I do want to remind, you know this, but we are not rezoning the airport property right now. This is simply to create a zone in the city of Ogden that, frankly, I believe could be beneficial to Ogden and other places other than the airport property. So that application and that rezone will happen subsequently after this is created. But I do want to just say that is a total separate conversation. But just to kind of give a quick summary of this flex zone, this is a space where small companies can come in and start fresh and start new and grow and build and become a entrepreneurship hub for smaller companies. And so if there's any questions, I'd love to answer them, but I also realize that I've taken a lot of your time, so thank you.
Any questions for the petitioner? If not, we'll accept public input on this item. So if you'd like to address the council on this item, please step to the podium. You'll have 3 minutes. State your name for the recorder. If you're online, you can raise your hand. Looks like we have one hand online. Let's go there first.
Hi, Heath Sato, Ogden resident. I just wanted to state my solid support for this proposal for the zoning. I have used space like this myself a number of times over the years for my sculpture business, and I think it's a good thing. And the only question I would have is that I find the noise, smoke, and smell stipulation being confined. It's not real clearly defined. I just want to make sure nobody ends up with like, oh, when we stand outside your front door, we can hear like a grinder inside or something like that and get somebody booted over something as silly as that over some petty differences. I just want to make sure it's clearly defined. That's about it. And thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments here? Okay, Brandon, I don't know if you'd like to address the definition of the noise, smoke, and odor question.
Well, I mean, yeah, we do have a noise ordinance, so they would be required to follow the noise ordinance, which is typically at the property line. So if there were residences or residential uses, they would, whoever's operating the business would still have to comply with the noise ordinance. So,
okay.
I don't know if that answers this question.
I just wondered if
he
just wanted.
It would be at the property line, and whoever is operating would be required to follow that noise ordinance.
Okay. Okay. All right. Any other discussion or a motion on this item?
I'd be happy to make a motion if there's no other discussion. I'll make a motion to approve or adopt proposed ordinance 2024-13.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Councilmember Treberka, second by Councilmember Heyer to adopt proposed ordinance 2024-13, and so roll call vote.
Councilmember Heyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Myers.
Aye.
Councilmember Blair,
Aye.
Councilmember Chaburka,
Aye.
Councilmember Graff,
Aye.
Vice Chair White,
Aye.
Chair Ritchie.
Aye, that passes. Thank you. Okay, moving right along. We have joining us Laura Lewis from Lewis, Robertson, and Birmingham to address us on the proposed utility revenue bond parameters for the 36-inch Canyon water line. Welcome.
Thank you. You'll be happy to know I will not describe what weighted average maturity is again. You've
I
heard
got
it
it the
once.
first time. Thank you.
My battery on my laptop's about to die, so I have the picture of what I need right here on my phone. I'm not sending messages, so just so you know. For those in your audience, my name is Laura Lewis. I'm a financial advisor with the firm LRB Public Finance Advisors, and I've had the pleasure of serving Ogden for a lot of years. I think since before I had gray hair, so it's been a while. So I feel a real kinship with you. I love to see all the progress and everything that you've done, and this main water line coming down the canyon is another one of those great things that you'll finally be able to accomplish. Something that I think was discussed probably 15 years ago or more. So the bonds that are being issued will be to fund the roughly, I think the total project cost is close to $99 million for a 36-inch pipeline coming down the canyon. Interestingly to me, just because I'm like, how do they do that? I think part of it has to go under the under Pineview Reservoir, and so it is a major project. I believe that the current line loses something like 1 million gallons of water a day, and Justin's behind the post. I can't see whether he's like, no, that's wrong, but it's significant to Ogden's residents, as well as to all the citizens of the state. To save that kind of water is great. So the process is the city has other money coming into the project besides just the debt that you'll be entering into. We're able to secure, I think with the mayor and probably others' efforts, a $10 million grant from the state this last legislative session. You have ARPA monies that are going to go into the project. And in addition to that, you will be entering into, if you approve the parameters resolution and we proceed with the transaction, you'll be entering into a loan agreement with WIFIA. It is, they're a subdivision, I'm making that word up, of the EPA. They do water infrastructure funding. And their interest rates are probably comparable to what you would get if you were to issue your own bonds, but the terms are far better than we could get in the public markets. I looked today, and the interest rate, if we were, setting it today, and I will say once the rate is set, it does stay set for the duration of the bonds, but we don't set that rate until the day before we close. If we were setting that rate today, it would be set at 4.75, and you will notice that in your resolution I have a maximum interest rate of 5%. I would ask whoever is making the motion if you would amend that interest rate and raise that to 6%, just to give us headroom. I'm not here to predict what interest rates may or may not do. I just like the flexibility. If we were to set it at 5 and it came in literally at 5.01, we get to start all over and come back and meet with you again, and you hold another public hearing. So all that does is provide you the flexibility.
Laura, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
There are two places that it says not to exceed 5%. That's on the
Needs to
bond
be in
parameters.
both.
So, and then the WIFIA loan, does that matter?
Yes,
So
both of them need to be.
places?
Yes.
Okay,
that
thank
is,
you.
and that's a very good catch, Richard. Thank you. With that, the parameters will be $82,100,000 will be the maximum par amount of the bonds. We currently estimate that will only be $77 million, only $77 million. And I've put a little bit of headroom in there as well, in case, as you get working on this project a year or so from now, if costs go up or whatever, we would be able to, the city would be able to issue a small bond without having to go back through this process. So again, it just gives us a little bit of headroom and flexibility. The maximum maturity will be 40 years, and the maximum interest rate, hopefully, will be 6% and a discount of 3%. These bonds will be purchased by WIFIA and by the State Revolving Loan Fund. I don't expect them to be priced at a discount. Again, I'm just allowing for flexibility. Last but not least, in adopting this emotion, you would be emotion. That was hysterical. In adopting this motion,
We're all emotional.
Resolution. Thank you. Third time's the charm. You will be setting a public hearing on June 11th, which you have to hold in order to to issue the bonds. Let's see, what else? I feel like I had one more thing I was going to say. Oh, the state loan. In addition to the federal loan, again, the interest rates are about what you could do on your own, but better conditions. They will agree to subordinate that debt to your existing debt. They will agree to not require payments until the construction is completed. And nicely, they will let us call those bonds at any time. So should interest rates go down, like we saw them, from 2009 to about a year ago, we would be able to refund those without a penalty. The state loan is at 1% rate, and no one is going to be able to beat that rate on the public market. So that's a great thing that the state's going to do for you as well. Whew, I think I'm done unless there are questions.
All right. Thank you very much. I also just want to point out, Justin is here if we had questions about the water line, and Taylor was here earlier to answer questions if we had regarding the water line, and then I didn't thank him, but he split. He must have had somewhere to go. So anyway, thanks for being here for that. So any questions for Laura or Justin on this? Okay. Well, I'll entertain a motion. Let's see, where are we? To set the public hearing on this.
Yeah, Chair Ritchie.
Or sorry.
So if you're going to amend it, it would be in two steps: a motion to amend.
Oh, correct.
For the 6% voice vote, and then vote on the amended resolution.
You do the amendment and I'll do the other one.
Chair, I would make a motion that we amend Resolution 2024-2. Just the rates to not exceed 6% rather than as it's listed to not exceed 5%. So just that change on the rate. That's what make the motion to amend.
Second.
We have a motion to amend the ordinance or the resolution by Councilmember Heyer with a second by Councilmember Blair. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Aye.
Chair. Oh.
Thank you. We've always got that little bit of a delay.
I'll make a motion to set the public hearing for this item for June 11th, 2024.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Chaburka and a second by Councilmember Heyer.
Chair Ritchie,
I'm sorry.
just to clarify it would be to adopt the resolution and set the.
So sorry, I apologize.
Okay.
So noted.
So noted.
Second agrees.
To adopt the resolution and set the public hearing. Motion by Councilmember Chaburka, second by Councilmember Heyer. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Myers?
Aye.
Councilmember Blair?
Aye.
Councilmember Chaburka?
Aye.
Councilmember Graff?
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer?
Aye.
Vice Chair White?
Aye.
Chair Ritchie?
Aye. Thank you. That passes.
Thank you. Thank you for accommodating that change. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you,
May
Laura.
I make a comment?
Yes.
I just want to say thanks so much to our mayor and to other people who have worked on this deal. I'm so relieved that we're going to be taking care of this line. Yeah, wonderful. So thanks for all that work.
Yep.
As am I. Thank you so much.
Yes, absolutely. Just a point of order, not a point of order, just a point of input here. Following this meeting, we have a special RDA meeting as well as a Municipal Building Authority meeting. We had noticed a public hearing in the Special Redevelopment Agency meeting for tonight. However, there was an error in the noticing, so we will not be having that public hearing tonight on that item. We are expected to table that item to May 7th. At that point in time, we will have a public hearing. However, if you would like to address the council on that issue, if you're here to talk about that tonight, you can do so now as we move into our public comment section, where you can address the council on any issue. This will be the last opportunity to do so on any issue. And so if you would like to step to the podium, state your name for the record, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. And if you're online, you can raise your hand and do so. And we'll go to that.
Good evening, Teresa Bramwell. I just want to say thank you to everyone in this room, and thank you for this opportunity to speak to you tonight. And I want to also say thank you to Mayor Nadolski for being here every day so far since he's been mayor. And that is a very vast change from the last administration. I think I came here for 6 months and I never saw the mayor here one time. So I very much appreciate that you listen and that you've been willing to hear and give some time and energy to issues that have been happening for a long time in Ogden City. So thank you for that. I also want to apologize for my emotion of the last meeting. I had kind of a frustrating experience with the shed that I wanted to install on my property so I could get some things done. It had a purpose, and I now am able to do that because the mayor stepped in and made sure that I was able to get the permit to install that lifetime shed. But something I want to talk about today that happened during that situation kind of stood out to me. So I went in to get the permit for the shed, and I was met by Chris Tremea, who's here in the building, in the room, who's the head of code enforcement. He was not the person I was there to talk to. I was there to actually get a permit. But he kind of commandeered my time while I was in that room and said that one of the things he said to me that stuck with me was, I have your zoning memorized. Which, as a woman, most of you are not women in this room. I know there's a few women, but when somebody says that to you in that kind of tone of voice, it makes like a shiver kind of go down your back. Like, what's this about, and why does this guy know so much about me? So I thought I'd do a little bit of research on my zoning, which is NC1. That's the zoning that my property falls underneath. And what I discovered is that there are 18 properties in the entire city of Ogden that are zoned NC1 of a city of 90,000 people. I think about 5 of those lots are vacant and being used as parking lots. And guess how many are houses? 1. And that's me. And he has my zoning memorized. So 18 people, 1 house, and that's me, and he's got me memorized.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa.
Hi, Travis Pate. I had the opportunity to visit with you guys in a work session, and then I subsequently received a letter. But I don't understand the format of when a form was made to arrive at the opinion that it did. And so I just wanted to present that back to say I'd like to have it considered and just have a one-on-one time with council or council staff to discuss that opportunity again. Because the 5-year plan did not exist for the Landmarks Commission until I presented my plan. And so even though 1998 said they shall have a 5-year plan, and they've had multiple times to have 5-year plans since, and to have mine saying, have 2 different things discussed. One in the September meeting, oh, do you really want me to do all this work? How it was presented to the Landmarks Commission. And then when it came back to the Landmarks Commission, said, you really don't want us to do this work. You only have 2 weeks to act on this, even though my petition was in for well over 2 months. And then now they only have 2 weeks to act. And then you guys were subsequently put into that same rock and hard place by the way the current ordinance reads. My neighbor and I simply wanted to address the dynamic. It doesn't have to have National Park Service's guidelines for what we were requesting. So even if it's a, so to speak, historic preservation corridor or those types of things, that there needs to be something in the current, in the upcoming general plan that addresses preservation corridors, because there is no reason for us to be able to bulldoze 90% of the East Central community because it's not on the local resource. But we can start land banking like they did on the south side of 12th Street between Wall and Washington. And there's individuals that would probably be willing to start land banking the East Central community because bulldozers are easier. We regulated paint in a commercial zone, but you can still tear the building down, but you can't paint it. And yet Ogden City painted the entire Monarch and allowed it. It was all original brick. And yet the city building, let's paint it. It's really a contradiction when we come as citizenry to ask our city fathers for something and they say, don't do as we do, do as we say. And so I'm simply saying that I would like to, with my neighbor and I would still like to sit down and say, what are some of the other options? Because if they said, we could have got a grant for this, we could have got a grant for this, and they speak specifically of my petition, but then when they adopt their 5-year general plan, mine's nowhere near it, nowhere on it. 2 plans that are not at risk. 17th Street might be higher at risk than the Maryland Drive neighborhood, but mine's not anywhere near it, even though it was told twice to the Landmarks Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Looks like we have a hand online.
Good evening, Angel Castillo, Ogden resident. I very much support the bulk of Mr. Pate's comments with regards to really drilling down on what a historic district is, and I am also struck with the irony of the fact that we did just pass a paint ordinance, and yet we can bulldoze buildings that are protected under the register. I'd like to point out one thing to Mr. Pate, though, that the Monarch was painted in its original form. They received federal historic money, and they had to prove photo records. So that's nothing to do with the city. The federal government allowed that, and therefore the city would have to as well. I'd like to commend the council for moving forward with putting the bond out there, and commend the administration for doing something that should have been done a very long time ago. It's a big, heavy lift to fix our water supply, and especially when we have more growth on the horizon. And we do live in this semi-arid climate, and water's a challenge. So I think that that's an important thing to note and applaud this administration for doing something very hard, very big, that is not only for the good of Ogden's growth and sustaining us, but also from an environmental standpoint. I'd like to talk briefly about what was happening in the work session with regards to parking and rentals, overnight VRBOs. I think we all might want to take a look at the root of the problem, which is enforcement, which could be skewed towards, let's look at the properties that have problems, and then the easy fix for that is to implement permit parking on those streets. And then it's super easy to enforce. There are signs that are there, and people can get tickets, and that the tickets go directly to the property owners. I'm all for making sure our enforcement department has the tools that they need, and it doesn't have to be implemented citywide. You could just go ahead and put together a process of, if particular properties have so many complaints, then we will petition the people that live on that street and say, here's our solution. And then the neighbors get behind it, and then we put up some signs, and then we can ticket. And it's just a matter of hanging placards on a windshield if you're there using a Airbnb. So thank you so much, and have a good night.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. All right, so thank you for your comments. I think the only question I had was from Travis, and I'd be more than happy to sit down and talk to you on how we came to that letter discussion, and we could meet to accommodate that. So let's talk offline. Okay, comments from Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry for the long meeting. I had one item I wanted to update you guys on, and in case you were hearing about it, I certainly am. It's the time of year that people are getting out, using our parks. We've got kids and ball teams and families, coaches out there at our parks, and they're looking for a place to use the restroom. So I just wanted to share some information that we're struggling with on the administrative side that maybe you can help us share if people reach out to you. We opened our bathrooms on the 12th of April. And since the 12th, we've had graffiti at the High Adventure Park restrooms on the 15th, so 3 days later. Same day, the sinks were stuck in the on position at the lower and far men's restroom. Unsure if that was vandalism. We don't have any pictures, but on the 16th, we had a call from Weber Dispatch. Someone was trapped in the Lester Park bathroom. She was trapped in there because she broke in through a high window and couldn't get back out. Subsequently also damaged the hardware trying to get out, therefore ensuring another closure of another park bathroom. 2 days later, we had an overdose in a park bathroom. Graffiti reported the next day at Buse Pond restroom. We have a new restroom going in at Monroe Park. That one doesn't quite have power. I think it was power or one of the utilities of power. So it's not open yet. So we placed portable restrooms in anticipation of the heavy use that Monroe Park gets, especially for soccer on Saturday mornings. Those were tipped over and vandalized before the public could use them. And certainly public was frustrated when couldn't use them, went to the building that's there and brand new, and it was locked because it's not quite complete yet. Power outage reported at Buse Pond restroom. I understand that one was due to some vandalism to the electrical panel and electrical system related to it. On the 22nd, vandalism reported at Lauren Farr restroom. Orchard Park restroom vandalism, same day. That was reported on I think on a Monday, and it had only been open since Friday. Graffiti reported on the recreation shed at Mellonville Park. We have pictures of the vandalism that was done. There's rocks shoved into the toilet and flushed. Big rocks certainly couldn't make it down, but small rocks did. That's not an easy repair. Graffiti outlets, sink fixtures, toilets, walls of all of the, I don't know what you call it, the panels that surround the toilet for privacy, vandalized, broken, electrical outlets pulled out, wires stripped out. People will clog the toilet, and that's when they seem to want to use it the most. Then they'll take all of the contents of that out and put it on the ground, leaving it there for our staff to clean up. If you want to see these pictures, which I invite you to do, although you're not going to enjoy it, it paints the picture of a pretty grim reality as to what is happening to the nice things that we provide for our community. And it's very frustrating for the people that want those amenities and need them, for the families that are there to enjoy our parks. And they're being victimized, our residents are, by people that are destroying the resources and assets that we provide for them. And frankly, our staff are being mistreated and borderline victimized by having to clean this crap up. So our staff's at wit's end. They don't quite know what else to do anymore. They've talked to staff in other cities. They've looked at case studies. They've done everything that we possibly can. Even Chief Young this morning was saying we're going to have to pull a unit out of crime reduction and try and put it on a focused attention on keeping our bathrooms open. That's a massive amount of resource that should be going to other things. This is a problem that is really unfortunate and is impacting people every single day, and you no doubt will hear about it. So I just wanted to give you guys and also give the public a snapshot into the realities. And if anybody wants to see the pictures, I'll gladly forward the council the email that we have. It's just the handful of issues that we've had so far, and they'll continue, no doubt. Thanks.
Thank you. Comments from council members?
I was just going to say to Travis, I'd be happy to talk with you too about the issue, because I think that's what I was alluding to with the, the property that we designated today. Is it seems like they're kind of a model for how you might be successful in something like that, or if there's another designation we could look at, I'd certainly be able to help with that too.
Thank you. All right, with that, I'd take a motion to adjourn.
Chair, I just want to.
Oh, yeah, sorry about those
quick
online.
question. So I just want to say too that that the 36-inch pipe is not something that this administration has just been able to get done. It has been in the works for many years, and so I think that we're moving it forward the best that we can, but it's been something that has been on the docket for even previous administration. So I think we've been talking about 36-inch pipeline since I've been at the council. So I just wanted to make that point.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We got a motion to adjourn by Councilmember Heyer, second by Councilmember Blair. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. We will take a minute to reset for our next meeting, unless we need a bio break at all. Let's go ahead and take maybe 10 minutes. Thank you to the Special Redevelopment Agency meeting of April 23rd, 2024. Let the record reflect that all board members are present. And joining us online, we have Vice Chair White and Board Member Myers still. Is he still with us, both of you guys?
Yep.
Wonderful.
Still
Okay.
here, yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. First up, we have approval of minutes from the regular meeting of March 12th, 2024. Board Member Blair.
Yes, I have reviewed those minutes and found them to be accurate, and I would make a motion that we adopt the minutes.
Second.
We have a motion by Board Member Blair and second by Board Member Chaburka to adopt the minutes. All in favor? This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. All right, we had noticed a public hearing for the next item. However, an error in the noticing. We would like to recommend tabling the item until May 7th, where we can renotice and have the public hearing at that point.
Chair, I'll make a motion that we table this item to May 7th.
Second.
We have a motion by Board Member Heyer to table the item listed to May 7th with a second by Board Member Chaburka. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Any comments from our executive director or board members?
None at this time. Thank you.
Make a motion to adjourn the Special Redevelopment Agency.
Second.
Motion by Board Member Graff, second by Board Member Heyer to adjourn this meeting. This is a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes. Welcome. Welcome to the April 23rd, 2024 Municipal Building Authority meeting. Let the record reflect that all trustees are present, and joining us online are Vice Chair White and Trustee Myers. Okay, first up on the agenda, we have a public hearing. We will invite Coralie to join us on the Coralie Jensen to join us on the proposed fiscal year 2023-2024 budget amendment, sales tax and tax increment bonds, Series 2023, and municipal lease revenue bonds, Series 2023A and 2023B.
Okay, this should be a lot shorter than my last presentation. I have for you tonight a proposed resolution for the to increase the budget appropriation in the MBA to recognize the bond proceeds and premiums as well as the issuance costs, and then the expense going to the Wonder Block parking structure for the bond proceeds for the sales tax revenue bond, and that is approximately $5 million. And then the bond proceeds for the lease revenue bonds, the premium and the issuance costs that will also be used for the parking structure, with the total increase in the budget appropriation of $61,258,700.
Thank you, Coralie. Any questions for Coralie at this point? If not, this is a public hearing, so if you'd like to address the MBA on this item, please step to the podium and state your name and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Chair, seeing no movement and no hands online, I would make a motion that we close the public hearing on this item.
Second.
We have a motion by Trustee Heyer and a second by Trustee Chaburka to close the public hearing on this. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No opposed. That passes. Any discussion or questions or a motion on this? Trustee Blair? Do we have a motion, or do we want to, or yeah?
I'll make that
Yeah, do you
motion.
want me to make it?
Sorry.
I
I thought he was going to take it.
I already did my minutes.
No, I thought he was going to take it. I'm sorry. I
didn't know if you wanted to make a motion, Trustee Blair. That's all.
I'll make that motion, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Trustee
I'm not gonna say
Chaburka
all
made
that, though.
the motion to adopt proposed resolution 2024-1.
I'll second it.
Second by Trustee Heyer. This is a roll call vote.
Trustee Blair.
Aye.
Trustee Chaburka.
Aye.
Trustee Graff.
Aye.
Trustee Heyer.
Aye.
Trustee Myers.
Aye.
Vice Chair White.
Aye.
Chair Ritchie.
Aye, and that passes. Thank you. Up next, do we have any comments from the president?
None at this time, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Wow, first
Any
time being
comments from
called that.
trustees?
Any comments?
Okay, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
Second.
Motion adjourned by Trustee Heyer, second by Trustee Chaburka. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you for joining us tonight. We will see you in 2 weeks.
Thanks, guys.
$60 million.